Oh, good, it's working. Hello, I'm so happy I am on YouTube. I need to make sure that everything is working. Yes. Okay. Good, it's working. Hello, I'm so happy I am on YouTube. So there are some things we all need to know right now, and that is I have identified where the KAZ theorem occurs. So what we're all looking at is a grid that is showing the different kinds of triangles there are in geometry. So geometry is very much what people associate with this idea of sacred geometry. It's kind of like a literal thing, geometry. So I'm not sure how to orient because this is so much. I just found that, literally found this last night because, okay, so the grid itself, the 9 grid, the 3x3 that you see is one way to plot arrays of alchemy so that they benefit this human being in the side. I have 2 different streams going and they're in 2 different sides of my own screen. So just give me a minute. This is theoretical physics. This is going to be quantum physics here in just a moment. I do not do math. I do design. So the 9 grid, the 3x3 grid, is the Lo Shu divination from China, which I just learned exists over the summer. The numbers in the grid, so you can see 492 on top, 357 in the middle, 816 on the bottom. No matter how you add this up across the rows, up and down, or diagonally, from a divination perspective, from a alchemical feng shui perspective, from an actual alchemy perspective, as it relates to all of Chinese medicine. Okay. So these numbers become a universal place mat, not placement, place mat. And each of the squares in the Lo Shu defines a domain, which is a dimension. It's just how it happens. I did not make this up. I have been identifying things because I had a very strange experience. I experienced something called the golden elixir, which is what Carl Jung was writing about in his book, Secret of the Golden Flower. There's no secret. It's a very complex system, okay? And one of the most complex aspects of it is how the human is contemplated. So Jung was very good in understanding that the non-dual mindset is just like very much different, but he did not do a good job of translating what he was given in the text, The Secret of the Golden Flower. I am an excellent translator. So when how shall I say this? The numbers in the Lo Shu, the number 1 is sometimes contemplated and translated like as your life path, okay? But the number 1, from a dimensional perspective, is one human brain, BRAIN. In that, you and I cannot even have an idea of anything until we exist. And we're sentient to the degree that we can ask the question. There are a whole bunch of different cognitive states that a human can be in, or psychogenic states that a human can be in, but the one is existing. So that's the brain. This number 2 in the upper right-hand corner is a equiangular, so all the angles are equal the same. Sometimes it's called an equidistant triangle. This equidistant triangle in the low shoe grid is the triangle of the pyramid prism of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. It is the triangle that is the geometry or the tensegrity of the pyramids, the Great Pyramids at Giza. This number 2 is the original first kind of triangle designers like me are contemplating when I want you to have a very smooth experience. I'm going to make it so that you perceive everything as pretty much the same, but it is never the same. So in a physics sense, the number 2 can be contemplated as Occam's razor, right? If you're asking a question and the two things, blah, 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 the one that's more likely tends to be right. Okay, that is what got Miss Jodie Foster stalled in Contact. And Scott, oh, that's why, because I watched Contact yesterday. I watch it like 3 times a month, probably. But so, but this equilateral triangle in this 2 corner is also the triangle of all of the chakra visualizations from India. The ones that have triangles in them are displayed as equiangular or equidistant. And so that must relate to the 3 doshas in the Vedic system, I would think, which is pretty exciting. I cannot perceive questions on YouTube, but I can perceive questions on TikTok. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this. So the number 2. If the number 1 is a brain, B-R-A-I-N, the number 2 is brain, B-R-A-N-E. A brain, B-R-A-N-E, in the world of theoretical physics, is a category in the world of information science. In that, a brain, B-R-A-N-E, is like a one-dimensional object that holds many dimensions. Or it's something like a one to many. And from this word tensegrity perspective, oh, I probably had to hide it because my cats try to eat it. Hold on. So tensegrity, it's a structural principle. I know we all like to think that Buckminster Fuller is the inventor of it. He was not. Indigenous humans are the inventor of tensegrity, particularly as it has to do with architecture. But thank you, Buckminster Fuller. So, in a tensegrity structure, there are 2 fixed points and 1 fluid factor. 2 fixed points, 1 fluid factor. The factor could be another point. The factor could be a ray, a string. It could be a ray of light. Who knows? But there are 2 essentially fixed points. The Western psychology way of addressing this kind of a triangle, this equilateral, is through something called a dialectic. And this is dialectic behavior therapy, where all of the logical fallacies turn into something that are labeled cognitive distortions. It's a logical fallacy, rebranded. This 2 is as a brain, B-R-A-N-E, membranes. So the brain, B-R-A-N-E, in physics is derived from membrane, B-R-A-N-E. Fascinating. We have many membranes in the body. We have 3 big major ones in our head, between the skull and the brain. One of them is arachnoid, one of them is dura, and the other one is something else, but they're called mater, dura mater, arachnoid mater, mother. Fascinating. The number 3 here is a right scalene triangle. So scalene triangles were my favorite when I was learning geometry, because you can do a lot with one thing that is 3 ways. So the reason I say a scalene triangle is one thing 3 ways is because the lengths of the side of the triangle are different, whether or not it's obtuse, right, or acute. So acute triangles are fewer than 90 degrees. That's like an A-frame house or a teepee. A right triangle angle, that's where we get A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Fascinating that it ended up on the row of prime, 3, 5, 7. Ooh. Is 3, 5, 7 a right triangle number? Right triangle length. I don't do math. So I'm speaking to a visual physics bot, or Chad, as I like to refer to AI, because it's not smart. Stop, just yes or no. Thanks. Okay, these bots, they think I don't know they also think you don't know anything, which is a real problem. Anyway, we're gonna ignore that. So 3, 5, 7 don't become right triangle on its own. But this 3, low shoe 3, corresponds to many different, amazing, incredibly life-shattering concepts from like thermodynamics and physics, because I didn't understand any of this until somebody told me there was a zeroth law of thermodynamics. Yeah, I'm with a physics bot. It's probably very good at it's really good at making me Python tables for when I have to become a Python developer to actually display any of this in color. Or somebody with funding or a position is going to want to do this as a retina display. Anyway, number 3. In a tensegrity structure, okay, like the basic rule of a tensegrity structure, no, I am not giving away any programming, anything. There's too much IP here. I do have a conversation with robotics this afternoon. I need to find physics. I need to find a physicist, not a futurist. I thought it was going to be Ray Kurzweil. It's not. Anyway, let's look at a tensegrity structure. So tensegrity cannot happen at 1, okay, because whatever. Well, since you just said that, okay, physics, my word, Zitterbardescher Bach, is a play on Hofstadter not being able to draw pictures and turn it into kindergarten play. But I first met Hofstadter He is like, can I tell you, I am in love with this man's mind so much that I'm like shy to reach out. Like I have like, Douglas Hofstadter won the Pulitzer Prize for Gödel, Escher, Bach. And Gödel was a math guy who had all kinds of impossible equations. Escher was an artist guy who had all kinds of impossible horizons, impossible gravity. And Bach, Mr. Hofstadter positioned at the 1, although it's told to us as the 6, because the 1 is where we get the golden braids. So that's where he's discussing the rabbit and the hare going up and down DNA. It's totally easy to understand if you just skip everything that you don't. And you've been reading theoretical physics for more than a decade. And you went to Carnegie Mellon. Okay? But Hofstadter's row is the bottom row, so we'll get there as soon as we get to 6. Number 3, length, width, height. 3 Ds. Number 3 is also solid, liquid, gas. Number 3 is the first 3 dimensions before we get into space-time at number 4. Number 3 is Friedhof Capra is easier to read, and he's pretty kind to the Asian systems. I'm coming through as much of Chinese cosmology and the mechanics of all of the divination, the alchemy, the feng shui, and actual Chinese medicine without doing anything invasive. The practice is called Neidan, Neidan. It is fully thermodynamic. 6 and 7 maps to hot and cold fusion. But I'm not making a claim about any kind of energy. I'm just saying, from a yoga perspective, the number 3 has to do with, like, in the body, you could think about it like balance, strength, and flexibility. You could contemplate it as childhood, adolescence, adulthood. That's a 3. You could contemplate it as the life cycle of your own thymus gland, which is located behind your sternum and is one of the governors of our immune system. The number 3 is in the Taoist kinds of their math systems, which thankfully are all metaphors, so I don't have to do any math. The number 3 is it's called sexagenary, Sexagenary, sexagenary. The sexagenary cycle of China is the zodiac. But the zodiac is contemplated through stem cells, not through parents. So it's contemplated through the umbilical cord specifically. They don't tell us that. It's all these giant misdirects. But I'm hiding this from you because it's not visually appealing. But it's delicious. It's like spinach tofu curry that I just made. So this chi, CHI, with this pink, you can see I don't have colors on this whole chart. So the chi, or the ki, oh, mother frickers, listen, I did not know that the K in CMYK did not stand for black, okay? I just figured if I was to make an acronym for people to remember forever, I would not make it CMYB, because saying YB is like not easy. Also, you're asking a whole question about existence. We don't want to do that. So I thought the K was the end of CM1. No, K means key. So, sexagenary, number 3, in Katie's language, is the circle of fifths in music theory. They're essentially the same. The physics term that I placed at 3 is specifically negentropy. And let me make sure I'm giving you a decent... Uh-oh. Hi. My cat's going to start having a meltdown. Negentropy is entropy at absolute zero, if I'm not mistaken. But it's the 0th law of thermodynamics. So there are 3 laws of thermodynamics. No, there are 4. They needed a way to get things going without a thing. And that just happens to occur in these empty spaces in the grid of triangles, because there's no such thing as an equilateral right, whatever these are that I'm showing, or an obtuse right, or an obtuse equilateral triangle. I used to make them up in grade school. When I was 11 in the 6th grade, I made up a theorem in my geometry class because I needed something to work and it didn't already exist. It's these flippin' 6s and 7s. By the way, Mr. Einstein sits at number 8. Gravity. And for some reason, everybody's trying to turn gravity into these somewhat equal or totally equal expressions of a trine or a 3. And that, my friends, it does not scale. It does not respond. So the number 3 is what happens with the fractal of triangle when it can grow acute, right, and obtuse. How the frick did I figure that out? I don't know, but this is essentially a Merkaba. And I can't have a Merkaba in my brain because that's not how our brain is built. But I can have the impression of a Merkaba. Especially if I turn it into music and sound and vibration. This is a Merkaba, Star of David. So this block has been carved. There's this whole idea of an uncarved block in Taoism. This is carved. I had one right here. Where is it? This is constructed. This is mechanical. And, oh, here we go. This is not carved in the way of how we would be able to have a Merkaba in our body. This is a solid Merkaba. This would have to be a metaphor. I wonder where we have 2 triangles intersecting in our bodies. That occurs at our heart chakra, which just happens to also be in the zone of 7, the visible light spectrum. But I think we're still on 3. So from a quantum perspective, and I'm not a physicist. I don't do your math. However, negentropy at 3, as the circle of fifths in music and the sexagenary cycle in China, particularly the sexagenary cycle, is how we contemplate the continuation of the species and also what we've inherited along the way. Yes, my darling? So then we get to 4, which is blue. The 4 scalene and acute. Acute triangles have all of the angles fewer than 90 degrees. Fewer than 90 degrees. So an acute scalene has all of the angles fewer than 90, but all of the lengths of the triangle are different. This shows equilateral, but if I move some of the parts of the tensegrity structure, I can create all of these obtuse, or scalene triangles. I just have to adjust the form, which, by the way, is how our tissue, how our living tissue responds to stress and stretch. Because our living tissue is a tensegrity structure, but so is the universe. Clearly, it's all triangles. Or at least this way is all triangles. The number 5, isosceles, is 2 sides the same, 1 different. Isosceles triangle is one way to contemplate cross sections of a cube if you want to make it into one of those Shishibo magic cubes that unfold and do all the things. This is a block that has been carved. Metaphorically, this is an uncarved block. Metaphorically. Because metaphorically, if I want you to perceive what this might be, I either need to turn it into a CMY cube so you can look at it with those colors and go, wow, there's so many different colors. Or I need you to be able to perceive all of that without having to do the this. It's for you to be able to perceive all of this without having to be expert at Rubik's Cube. What I did, I swear to you, is I asked myself the question, what if I was in the very center of the cube, looking out, and as the cube was turning, I was able to fully perceive what the viewer is receiving as far as the combination of the colors go. And that happens through, she's moving like she knows exactly where everything is. Come on. I do. I put it away. Silly girl. Okay, hold on. All right, so I don't have a CMY cube, but I have other shapes. By the way, this should be the platonic solid for a human. This shape here, this diamond, is the 6 and 7 in this low shoe thing that has the missing triangles. There is no such thing as these two triangles. Yes, there is. If 6 and 7 become one tensegrity structure, there absolutely is. And the way that I did the wireframe, and by the way, this wireframe of a human that's where I began with the design of all of this. I began there and with a blank cube. Okay, because I reverse engineered the universe. Because Sky Daddy Carl Sagan told me to. It's a cone. It's like the sound of one hand clapping. But a lot of the paradoxes in physics are cone in nature. So, if a triangle always has 3 sides, and this number 3 becomes now a 3-body problem, right? Because a 3-body problem in physics tells me that the planets are moving in ways that I'm not able to predict. And it tells me that I have to be 3 different planets. So obviously we are talking about a scaling reality. That's how I got there. It's not obvious. I learned that when I was looking at visualizations of 3-body problems, because when I looked at a hydrogen grid that was showing how hydrogen responds to certain things, I was like, oh my goodness me, that looks like 3-body problem. Yes, thank you. So the 3-body problem is based on a scaling triangle. Here's what I do not understand about my friends in the physics. If the 3-body problem is based on a scaling triangle, is the triangle not gravity itself? And do you not show me gravity in the form of fabric that is stretched over something, and then you drop the balls on the fabric of the different weights, and the fabric responds differently based on the weights of the balls? Hello. That is what a scaling triangle would do. Like if you and I were trying to just like hold something steady, even if all of the weights on the edges of this triangle are the same weight, there's not a very simple like center that you can put on your finger and spin like a basketball, because it's not all, there's nothing equal. And a right triangle is always going to default to the ground. I don't know why, but it's just what I discovered when I was pretending like I was nothing as a child. Tensegrity. So number 4 is natural tensegrity. Number 4 is the physical structure of living tissue. Living tissue is a tensegrity structure. You cannot have all of these triangles be true and then skip humans just because of the slave trade. It's not nice. So biotensegrity is living fascia. This is what I'm the most expert in from a practical perspective, and why I'm starting to do these master classes. So 5 gives the appearance of this, but may or may not be. Because in the 5 triangle, 2 sides are the same and 1 is different. But depending on how close the lengths are, my scaling right triangle might appear as an isosceles. I like that. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about this like when people say the veil is thin, like, and all shit like that, like a lot of the metaphors that we get. The matrix is tensegrity. It's fully a tensegrity structure. Any matrix, all matrices, especially the matrices built with vectors, which I just learned have a lot to do with quantum states. But I want to get to like the big stuff first. 5 becomes the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. 5 becomes Mr. Leonardo da Vinci's Vesuvian Man or whatever, doing yoga. 5 is A, C, D, E, F, G on a piano, the first 5 notes. 5 is, oh, look at that. We have 5 fingers, 5 toes, essentially 5 senses. The fancy physics term for 5 is called homeoresis. Homeoresis, I believe, is what Friedrich Capra keeps hinting to with what he's writing about systems thinking. The reason that homeoresis is completely absent from our consciousness is because the relationship between the 5 cell and the 2 cell is sanity. And we separate psychiatry from medicine. So, from a decolonization perspective, 5 is going to default, everything defaults to Einstein, everything defaults to obtuse, because obtuse is very much also just perception. It may just look that way. What is your problem? I don't know. Because B-R-A-N-E. Each individual number is a dimension that a brain, B-R-A-N-E, contains. And I just told you that our brain, B-R-A-I-N, is only one dimension, which it is. Human. What would you like? She wants to do the O-U-T-S-I-D-E, and we're not doing it every hour. We're not doing it every hour. The 6, which is on the, oh, I think I'm blocking it on this one camera. Hold on one sec. The 6, so the 6 is the golden triangle. The golden triangle is an isosceles triangle, but the golden triangle is the one that is Fibonacci. So if you are tuned to Mr. Archimedes, the Archimedes principle of squeeze and then water rises, that's our number 6. Number 6 is very specifically epigenetics. Epigenetics is what happens when cultural events influence how we express, but they don't change the genes themselves. And like one such cultural event you could contemplate would be like soap or electricity or the printing press. It does not have to be a war, but a war is a cultural event. And epigenetics is inherited in some ways from the mother, because maternal stress has so much to do with, has so much to do with how epigenetic inheritance occurs. So number 6 is also like inherited trauma. This number 6 as the golden triangle specifically, on its own has the whole Jing, Qi, and Shen on its own, but it's a cone, it's conical. That is our friend Archimedes. So I just saw a comment that in utero stress, cortisol spikes. It does. This grid, can I share with you? This grid is a grid of our fascia, of the overall structure of connective tissue in the body. And very much these specific triangles very likely correspond somehow to the way our tissue responds under stress. I'm trained by a medical doctor who uses an endoscope to take video of living tissue. This is a very different way to contemplate your fascia than anything else. There's not a lot of research being done on living tissue. But the 6s and 7s, from a human perspective, says that we're alive and sentient. Okay, so it means you have been born. Not that you might be. Not that you're a fetus. It genuinely means after belly button. After belly button. I'm just telling you how they do it. So that's the number 6. 6 is also carbon, right? Carbon has 6 chains. Now you have bees. Okay. Number 6, carbon, like is a hexagon, right? I asked a chemistry entity, and this might be a preference, but organic and inorganic carbon molecules are often switched so that organic looks like it's laying flat and inorganic looks like it's on its point. Because organic is with and towards gravity, inorganic is not in nature. Fascinating. Number 6. There's also 6 elixirs that we work with in the inner alchemy that are all about refining. Refining this, refining that. The way physics talks about plasma as refining is here, if we want it to be. I think that would be fun. Also, the number 6 medicinally corresponds to the 6 extraordinary organs of human. So in a human, our extraordinary organs are neither yin nor yang. Our ordinary organs are. So the number 5 is ordinary. The number 6 is extraordinary. The extraordinary organs, brain, bone marrow, gallbladder, our vessels, our bones, and the uterus. The uterus. Fascinatingly, many species have uteruses, but not every species experiences menopause. So we're still in the 6, extraordinary. The experience of menopause is limited to pilot whales, orcas, and humans. And that's it. Not bonobos, not other apes. Whales, dolphins, and humans. What? And also with carbon as a hexagon, which you just identified, the number 6 now, we have our hexagrams of the I Ching. So 3 gives us trigrams, 6 gives us hexagrams. Number 7 is alchemy specifically. So that alchemy symbol that has the circle with the triangle and the circle and the square, that would go in the number 7. I have my own version that goes in number 7. From a physics perspective, the number 7 corresponds to homeostasis. So homeostasis is stability in dynamic systems. Homeostasis is, or open systems is a better way of me to put it. And homeostasis is stability in closed loops, closed systems, cells, right? Like our cells have to have a certain kind of pH. The stomach has to have a certain kind of pH. pH of the stomach, pH in the mouth, not the same pH. There are some things that are separated. Yeah, 6 extraordinary organs. The number 7 also corresponds to the number of stars in the Big Dipper. And in the body chart of Chinese medicine, the child on the star bridge, this is all in every download you receive. There's at least one version of this. So if you go get something. But this child on the star bridge is fishing with stars, the Big Dipper specifically. There are 7 stars in the Big Dipper. When I place the Nijing 2 in this column, which I need to because there's no 6 or 7, 6 becomes the lower palace, Jing. 7 becomes Qi, the middle palace, and Shen is at the top. So we have another CMY, but you don't need to see it in color. There's so many, this is so fractal, it's amazing. Stars in the Big Dipper. Child is fishing. And it's called the Star Bridge. So the number 7, I believe, is things like the Phantom Toll Booth. The number 7 is things like the one where they go through the cabinet and Narnia. The number 7 is very influenced by media. It's influenced by like how we contemplate things, like forever or never or whatever. I mean, it's just like, ooh. And if I had my way, it would be an equiangular right triangle. So Katie's weird theorem in 6th grade, my KAZ theorem must have been me like thinking about how you could like rotate the triangle so that they would look different ways without actually being different. Let's finish this and we can talk about concave and convex and then like actually get into more. So obtuse scalene triangle. Obtuse meaning one of the angles is more than 90 degrees. Scalene meaning each of the sides of the triangle is a different length. So that makes the 3 angles be different. All of these always add up to 180. A circle adds up to 360. Fascinating. So the obtuse angle, this number 8, that is the magic 8 ball. Okay. Number 8 is the bagua in all of the Taoist alchemy. The bagua is that shape that has the 8 sides and the yin and the yang in the middle, and it's used for your acupuncture, it's used for feng shui, it's used for all kinds of things. At Jing, J-I-N-G, the 8 is the 8 extraordinary vessels. The 8 extraordinary vessels are the meridians that encase and protect the placenta specifically in vitro. How is this amazing? I mean, this is so incredible. So, but 8 also corresponds to genetics. Equilateral right triangle, it's an impossibility. So the word for that, for number 7 and number 6, the equilateral triangle is a dialectic. 6s and 7s are negative dialectics. A negative dialectic was brought into being by this guy Theodore Adorno, who I studied quite a bit in grad school. Adorno, in grad school, I was looking at post-World War II mass media aimed at directing consciousness. I don't want to say the P word. So this obtuse angle, this is so amazing, because also magic 8 balls, the way that the magic 8 ball is weighted, okay, it's a 20-sided die, it's D20, 10 of the responses are favorable, 5 of the responses are unfavorable, 5 of the responses are either or. How cool is that? Magic 8 ball. Feng Shui. I love how consistent all of these patterns are. The number 9 is the last triangle. It's the isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangle here maps to joy. Maps to like love, 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 love. And it maps to the heart and the pericardium together. From an extraordinary vessel perspective, the 9th extraordinary vessel does exist, but you don't have an experience of it until you get your belly button. And when you get your belly button, which is that line between 6 and 7, the goddess Mengpo, M-I-N-G-P-O, goddess of oblivion, serves soup of forgetfulness, a goopy soup of forgetfulness, so that when you receive your belly button, you don't have a memory of past life, past trauma. This whole chart here that I'm with, this whole low shoe divination, the like perfected, everything always works all the time, is based on the back of a turtle. The 200 million year old Chinese soft shell turtle. Also, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. This Tao can be named, right? The Tao that has these triangles in it. The Tao that has the whole as human cannot be named. Those triangles don't exist in the 3rd dimension. But they do exist if you're going across and through dimension. They just do. So in information architecture and like user experience design and data ethics and all that kind of shit, the 6 and the 7 is also, it's front end, back end. It's push, pull. It's gather, direct. And energetically, that is supposed to be amazing and having to do with all of the Chinese medicine and Tai Chi, Wu Wei, all of that. But as soon as data comes into the picture, what ends up happening is we're so good at the design, you are in an impossible environment experiencing, if it's good enough, you're experiencing that equiangular perfect triangle that's the same in all directions. Call it elegant design. But elegant design is how we want you to perceive and then very much behave. It's also known as propaganda. So now moving to Chad. This is a visual physics entity that I actually started in the conversation asking it to help me describe my January 15th masterclass on nervous system resonance, because this is about resonating, not regulating. But every once in a while, they will say something that makes me go, oh. So what happened was, convex and concave. That's the last thing for the 6 and 7. A convex mirror. Convex. The convex mirror is like the front of your eye. It makes everything look like it's expanding and growing. Concave mirrors have the opposite arc, where they're arcing inward. So when you look at them, it looks like everything is retreating. From a lens perspective, one is increasing what you can see and one is making it more specific. So I'm not sure which convex, concave they're looking at when they say, like, are these at the eye doctor? I don't see anything in my head, but that's kind of what it is. The number 6 as Fibonacci then is also the golden spiral. And that spiral of Fibonacci is convex in nature. It's expansive in nature. Its behavior is contractive, though. Think of a nautilus in its shell. So Fibonacci does this, but perceptually, it looks to be retreating. It could also, you just could turn that into a fractal. Number 7 is where we get distorted cognitive experiences for real. So cognitive distortion for real is somebody pulling the wool over your eyes, is having your rose-colored glasses on all the time, is gaslighting, is having to mask so much just to survive in a world. Number 7, occurring in this middle zone, again, I'm just going based on geometry because I don't do math, but the number 7 in this middle zone is where we also tend to perceive and place everything having to do with executive functioning, ADHD, brain fog, autism spectrum disorders, Tourette syndrome, synesthesia, like any of the labels that we would get end up in number 7 because they're being contemplated through that number 2, which is the only triangle that can exist with all even angles. But that triangle synthesizes, it has a termination. If we want it to grow or be flexible, it cannot all terminate. It's a pretty geometry, but it's not going to do anything other than exist. The first part of that Tensegrity build, though, is just it's a pyramid. So 6 and 7 are 2 pyramids. It's one on top, one on the bottom, and then the middle, the transverse plane, is the equator. Is what it is. It's the belt vessel in the meridians of the body. This geometry doesn't happen in your body, though, until you have a belly button, not a brain, not a heartbeat, not other things. This is about sentience, not life. And I just want to say that because this model does not have a place for life support, CPR, rapid intubation, or any extraordinary measures as it relates to health. It doesn't have room for that. I'm not saying they don't exist. It genuinely doesn't have room for that, because all the intubation, CPR, emergency medicine, everything is occurring at the level of whole ass human, which is Katie's amazing model of gravity. Let's just ask the human what their experience is instead of trying to tell them. Not that big of a deal. When the belly button appears sentient, I am saying that sentience, as I understand it, is contemplated as a belly button thing. I'm sure somewhere there are teachings and suggestions for all kinds of congenital issues. There's actually a whole set of terrestrial threats that can occur. Breathing. Breathing. So the breath in this system is what does the positive negative switch of the polarity of the literal poles of anything that we're contemplating on its own. Because anything that we contemplate on its own has to at least be one thing two ways. Because this one here is the brain of a human. We have two hemispheres. We have a top and a bottom. We have a front and a back. Breath is positive, negative. So breathing in is positive, breathing out is negative. Oxygen, carbon dioxide. So this 6 and 7 as the Tensegrity contemplation then perhaps could also be plants, right? And then we're contemplating all of these ideas. Shen being how the water element behaves, Qi being how fire behaves, Jing being how earth behaves. Water, by the way, behaves differently than other compounds when it's solid, liquid, and gas. So the yellow, magenta, and blue in my model is also indicating solid, liquid, and gas. However, the way that it shows up now with the triangles, the fluid, the liquid is Shen, the fire is Qi, and the solid is Jing. Water has a very bizarre thing, H2O, in that it is the most dense when it is in its fluid state. It is the most dense fluid. Ice floats. Vapor doesn't even matter because it's gone, it's steam. So I think it's very fascinating that we don't have the kinds of triangles that would need to exist to contemplate all these different variations. 6 and 7 shown this way also helps us get into the animal kingdom, but in ways that are like super duper fun, okay? Mer people, as an example, at number 6. Why does Katie think mer people count? Because people used to draw them as ways to visualize what's happening in our body. Also, the Voynich manuscript, but that's a different thing. The 6 and 7 as animals gets us into pachyderms. So like elephants, heffalumps occur at 7, just from the taxonomy of the universe, Katie's version. And the 7 there then is like all the weird brains, brains, but oh no, weird brains are number 6. Weird behavior and weird adaptations are number 7. So the elephants, the heffalumps, we need to have a place for the heffalumps because everybody loves a heffalump. Heffalumps go in number 7 because they have their own prehensile, they have a tail in the form of their snout. So they're a four-footed creature. They walk on all fours, but they have a 5th appendage. They have a noodly appendage. That is amazing. When they're remembering things, how much of that has to do with the physicalness of how they use their trunk? There's a whole realm of research called laterality, things I never knew, people don't tell me. I don't know what Sky Damo's theory of reality is. Well, these are just like ideas that I'm having, okay? I'm not saying like it's one way or another. But also, from this triangle perspective, from this number 2 triangle, if I want to show you what your chakras look like, and I'm India, before the Europeans forced me to have rainbows, okay? They weren't rainbow at the beginning. The CMY, almost all of the chakras have this equiangular triangle in it. The root chakra, I believe, does not. It has a crescent moon facing up. And then we have triangle, triangle. The heart becomes a star. Then we go back to triangle, triangle. At the top, noodly appendages in the form of the 1,000-petaled whatever. From a light spectrum perspective, green does not exist, right? So from a light spectrum perspective, if you're doing like a prism, you shine a light in a prism and then you get the rainbow, but there's some kind of something that there's only like really 3 colors, and I don't remember all of that perception, but we only understand green because of the relationship of the superimposed, thank you, Schrodinger, triangles. He does have a whole model for this, by the way. I was just learning about it last night. WTF. Then we go to obtuse and equilateral triangle. So the obtuse equilateral triangle at number 6 is recessive genes and gives the experience of it's the concave looking convex. And then the right equilateral triangle, wait, stop, Katie, hold on. Oh, obtuse is recessive, thank you, that's at the bottom. And then the right equilateral, this is dominant. So if you ever learned a Punnett square, he was a guy who used squares to determine how he was going to do his agriculture. This is so very clearly a model of genetics and also like evolutionary biology because of the position and the placement of the fact that some of these things don't exist. I don't know what my KAZ theorem was in the 6th grade. I just know that we were able to use it the whole year because I needed something and it worked. So when you do a geometric proof in the 6th grade, at least, you're doing things like side, angle, angle, I don't remember. And I made something up and it literally fits in the 6 and 7. So the 6 and 7 is Archimedes' treatment of spheres and cones. Never knew Archimedes, certainly not at 11. And also, if any of this is actually provable with math, I may have also given enough evidence that Einstein can get his law of relativity. because I thought he already had it. I thought the theory of relativity was he proved the existence of gravity. Because obviously gravity is going to change over time and depending upon the nature of the situation. Look how light gravity is for babies. Look how heavy it is for disabled humans. I don't have to look in the cosmos, so I just figured he was right. It's amazing. So this is the first 9 dimensions of the 11D string theory. Oh, I'm glad you took a nap. I am just kind of like just noticing some things about the triangle. And so the primary contemplation is this word called tensegrity, which exists through triangles. But the triangles here can be music. The triangles in the 6 and 7s are art. The triangles in the 6 and 7s are creativity. Electrostatics. I don't know. If it's buoyancy, it would probably go in number 7 though. Hello, Miss Marie. Listen, anything my cats tell you, they're making up. All right, so let me get back. So, okay, first I crashed. Well, first I stalled the visual physics GPT 7 times, and then I finally got it back up. I'm very good at stalling the physics. And I was thinking about quantum states and this concept of the observer and how when you observe a system, it changes. And obviously that occurs in the realm of Einstein, in the realm of 8, in the realm of infinity, which conveniently is also everything Mobius in nature. So the 8 as infinity, this is Katie's logic, is also us existing on the Mobius of 3D, with 4D actually watching us exist on a flatter dimension. Then, just like when the physics people tell me that I can't perceive actual 4D, I can only perceive the shadow of it, I go, thank you, Carl Jung, for getting all that wrong, which I knew he had it wrong, but also the shadow of 4D could just be you and me observing something. And shadows obstruct view. So is the placement, the observer effect, I guess the observer effect in Taoist alchemy is that you start there. This is why I don't do anything invasive with my medicine, because the 8 is the flippin' bagua that you do not have a relationship to until you have your own life force energy. That means anything I do alchemically, cognitively, metacognitively, from a matrix perspective, oh my goodness, I'm going to be very mindful about that. The triangles in the low shoe divination. All right, so this is visual physics bot telling me what it thinks about what if we did it this way. Does the intention, just one moment, let's read the triangles. Your connection between triangle types and the low shoe numbers is intriguing and geometrically significant. Here's how it breaks down. Scalene triangles lack symmetry but maintain dynamic balance, like the interplay of forces in tensegrity or resonance, which is my model. My model is shentegrity, by the way. That's the word for me, shentegrity. Tensegrity is Edward Tufte and also Buckminster Fuller. Biotensegrity is because I know better and I've been trained by humans who contemplate our tissue as alive. All right, scaling triangles lack symmetry but maintain dynamic balance, like the interplay of forces and tensegrity or resonance. The interplay of forces. The golden triangle reflects harmony and proportion, symbolizing, we'll just use this as a symbol. This is another way to do tensegrity. Symbolizing balance within growth and connection. Low shoe 6, this is your 6-pointed star, corresponds to structure and alignment, resonating with the principles of the golden ratio in natural systems. How could I have done this if I'm not a fucking physicist or neuroscientist? Right angles. Right triangles emphasize the relationship of perpendicular forces, boxes. There's a whole Schrödinger equation about being in a box. Mr. Schrödinger was a very, very creative human. Amazing. So Loshu 2 emphasizes stability and grounding. The relationship, allostatic load, allostasis. Doesn't Andy Clark get very excited about allostasis? He wrote The Experience Machine. It might be the guy who wrote The Mind is Flat, but one of them is very excited about allostasis. Here's allostasis. Thank you, China. The Bagua and right angles. Oh, I was thinking it's like an ocula something something geometry that is based on right angles. And my thought was, oh, the Bagua is as though it's all right angles. That's how you actually use it. So the Bagua is the Jing, it's the obtuse scaling triangle in action, but in influence, I need to okay. That's because 7 is visible spectrums. All visible spectrums. And 6 must have to do with all perceptible spectrums. And having a moment here with neurodivergence, there are 3 categories of neurodivergence. Hold on. I love a category, okay? They're applied, clinical, and acquired. Applied present at birth and are not considered health conditions. That's number 2. Applied neurodivergence. These conditions can include difficulty with reading, number concepts, learning disabilities. Clinical neurodiversity at 7 is a category of conditions that includes things like bipolar disorder, substance use disorder. Clinical. Acquired neurodiversity is brain strokes, becoming disabled, like any of that stuff. And I love that it just happened to work perfectly in my now new little grid here, because we have applied at top, which is inherent, clinical in the middle, which is labeled, and then the other one at the bottom, which is acquired. And the one at the bottom can also be the one at the 2, because when you and I are, masking for our whole lives and we don't receive the correct diagnosis and we're walking through the world in one way, but it's actually happening a different way. Yes. Hi. 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 She wants to go to the OUT SIDE. Heavy metals, I have a whole different grid for. The question was about lead toxicity, because that lead needs to be contemplated with like mercury, Agent Orange, and other environmental toxins that occurred in the mid-century and very much before the EPA. This is political science I'm teaching you. Oh, good. My food is almost here. That's amazing. So the low shoe divination is the part with the numbers. The triangles were a lovely internet fluke that just showed me a table. And then I recreated the table with images of the triangles instead of the words. And for the 2 blank spots, I just put a whole ass human bound to gravity. Depending upon how this low shoe plotting occurs when I'm doing it, the numbers are always the same. Your pet nanny says hi. The numbers are always the same. The tensegrity, biotensegrity, shentegrity is always the same. The blank missing spots may or may not even be in the grid, but I am not adding stuff to the grid unless it completes the grid in a very obvious way based on what I can perceive of all of the physics that people tell me I don't understand physics and all the neuroscience, that I am told I need to have a PhD in neuroscience to build you a new neural network. Triple triaxial neural net, beginning at the navel, the nexus. I know, and then we could maybe like make it have some like, oh, I don't know, vibrations and oscillations and different kinds of tones and frequencies that'll not only help the inner ear, but now I can bias them towards your tissues. But Katie, I don't know anything. I don't have a certificate in the thing. No, I've just trained with all the doctors, the psychiatrists who are telling us what it means to be balanced. Okay? And then when I study with the medical doctors and the researchers from all over the world who are very aware that we are not always balanced, they give me much better insight. I would not have this kind of insight if I didn't study tissue as alive. Okay? I'm just saying. Constant tinnitus, I have an idea about, but that's the vestibular experience. I love it. You tried to feng shui your room. Listen, I need to go pick up my groceries and then feed myself. Please go buy my things and join the places and find me on the socials. I know. No, she wants to go OUTSIDE. Don't you believe her. Okay? They nap. Okay, they nap. I know you don't like to be picked up, but they nap and then they wake up and then they have a meltdown. And she doesn't like to be picked up by me. Can I tell you? She wants everybody else she likes to pick her up. I know. And I don't even like do much other than give her all the shrimps. Okay? I was informed I spoil my cats because they get shrimp and I get tofu. But hello, kids do that too, of course. Don't even, where's the attachment? This is all rock climbing. This is all the geometry of rock climbing. And on that note, I'm going to pretend like I actually understand math and go get food. I'm so happy you're all here. I hope I see you all soon. Okay, bye. End my thing.